it's Miss Ashley. And for today, we're going to do a fun science experiment where we test out different things around the house that would sink or float when we put them in water. But before we do our science experiment, I want to read you a story. And the title of this story is Who Sank the Boat by Pamela Allen. Beside the sea, on Mr. Pepper's place, there lived a cow, a donkey, a sheep, a pig, and a tiny little mouse. They were good friends, and one warm sunny morning, for no particular reason, they decided to go for a row in the bay. And here, if you look in this picture, you can see all the animals lined up. They're walking down the pier to get into the bay, and the bay is the water. And here's the boat. Do you know who sank the boat? Let's see. Oh, was it the cow who almost fell in when she tilted the boat and made such a din? And a din is just a funny word for a lot of noise. So there's the cow climbing in the boat. Let's see, did she sink the boat? No, it wasn't the cow who almost fell in. Do you know who sank the boat? Let's see, which animal tried to get in next? Was it the donkey who balanced her weight, who yelled, "I'll get in," at the bow before it's too late? And if you look here, the donkey's climbing in at the front of the boat. And the word bow just means front. It means the front of a boat. So here you have the cow at the back of the boat and the donkey climbing in at the front. Let's see. No, it wasn't the donkey who balanced her weight. Do you know who sank the boat? But if you look here, you can see the boat. Part of it is under the water, and part of it is above the water. Let's see what happens. Was it the pig, as fat as butter, who stepped in at the side and caused a great flutter? And that just means to make a lot of noise. So there's the pig climbing in. The boat's tilting into the water, but let's see, was it the pig who sank the boat? Oh no, it wasn't the pig, as fat as butter. Do you know who sank the boat? But if you look, what's happening to the boat? In this picture here, when we looked in this picture, before the pig got in, the boat was, half of it was above the water and half of it was below the water or under the water. And now that the pig got in, now look at the boat. Most of it is under the water. Was it the sheep who knew where to sit to level the boat so that she could knit? And knit means to sew, and she looks like she might be making a scarf. But look here, look at the boat. Most of it is under the water. What's going to happen once the sheep gets in? No, it wasn't the sheep who knew where to sit. Do you know who sank the boat? Look at the boat. Most of all the boat is under the water. There's just a teeny tiny bit that's up here at the front of the boat that you can see. Who's the last animal to get into the boat? Was it the mouse? The last to get in, who was the lightest of all? Could it be him? Was it the mouse? Let's see. Oh my goodness, what happened? You do know who sank the boat. You're so smart. I think it might have been all of the animals that sank the boat. What do you think? Oh, and look here. They all look worn out. And the mouse is like, wait for me. All right, thanks for listening to my story. And now we're going to do our experiment. So what I have here, I filled up a big measuring bowl with some water. And it's not cold, it's not hot, it's just a little kind of like warm water. And I have several different objects from around my house that I put on a tray here. So I have them all in one spot. I'm going to move my camera so you guys can see better. And I start to put the objects into the bowl. Okay, let me move these out of the way. All right, so I have over here on my tray, I have a feather. We're going to see if our feather sinks or if it floats. And I have a quarter, which is a coin, type of money. And I have a magnetile. And I have a plastic fish, little orange fish. And I have a plastic spoon. And then I also have a metal spoon. We're going to try both of these. And then I have a plastic egg. And I also have a real egg that I got from inside of my refrigerator. So I have to be really careful with this one because we don't want it to crack and break inside my water. Okay, so first thing we are going to try out, the first object is my feather. So what do you think is going to happen? We're going to take an educated guess, which means we're really going to use our brains to think. What do you think is going to happen? Do you think our feather is going to sink or do you think it's going to float? Let's try. Okay, here we go. And what's happening to our feather? Is it sinking or is it floating? Floating means it stays on top of the water. So our feather floated. All right, let's see. What do we have next? Let's try our quarter. So I'm going to try my coin, my money, and I'm going to drop it into my water. What do you think is going to happen? Remember, we're going to take an educated guess and really use our brains. Do you think it's going to sink to the bottom or is it going to float on top of the water? Let's see. Ready? Oh, and it sunk to the bottom and you can see my quarter down there floating on the bottom of the, or not floating, it sunk to the bottom of my bowl. All right, now let's see. How about let's try out the magnetile. What do you think is going to happen with this? There's magnets in here, and sometimes magnets can be heavy. And if something's heavy, would it sink or would it float? Let's see. Oh, and it sank to the bottom, and there's our magnetile sitting at the bottom of the bowl. All right, let's try our, let's see, what next? How about our fish? What do you think is going to happen to our fish? Since it's not a real fish, it can't swim around in my water. Let's see, I'm going to drop it in. Use your brain. What do you think? Oh, and it sank to the bottom. And there it is at the bottom of my bowl. Poor little fish. All right, let's take our fish out. And what should I do next? How about my plastic spoon? What do you think is going to happen to this? Does this weigh a lot or does it weigh a little? Is it light or is it heavy? Let's see. I'm going to lay it right on top. And what's happening to my spoon? Let me show you. Can you see? It's floating. Good job, boys and girls. You're so smart. All right. Now let's try out our metal spoon. See what happens with this. Is this spoon light or is it heavy? Does it weigh a lot or does it weigh a little? Let's see. Oh, and it sank to the bottom, and it was almost too big for my bowl. All right, now, 2 more things I want to test out. Well, actually 3. You know what? I forgot one of my objects from around my house. I'm trying to find it. Where did I put my cotton ball? Ah, here it is. On the floor. I have a cotton swab, something you might use to clean your face or take off nail polish. So I'm going to try this first, and then we'll do our plastic egg and our real egg. So this is my cotton swab, and what do you think is going to happen with this? Is it light or is it heavy? Let's see. I'm going to drop it in there. Oh, it looks like it's floating. Oh no, what's happening to it? Where did it go? It sank to the bottom. Why do you think that happened? Our cotton swab absorbed the water, all the water is in it, and when that happens, it makes it heavy, so it sinks to the bottom. I'm going to squeeze out my water and lay it over here on my tray. And my last 2 things I'm going to test out, and then I have something extra special to show you. All right, so this is our plastic egg. Let's see what happens here. Oh, and is it sinking or is it floating? It's floating. Good job, boys and girls. You're so smart. And now for our last object. We're going to test out our egg. Now, I have to be very careful when I put this in my water because we don't want it to break. So here we go. Are you ready? Do you think it's going to sink or float? Is an egg heavy or is it light? If you hold it, it might not feel too heavy, but when you put it in water, let's see. Do you think it's going to sink or float? Oh, and it sank to the bottom. All right, now, my extra special experiment that I have for everybody. So, I read where if you add salt to water and you put an egg in it, if you add enough salt, that the egg will float. So this is my same egg. It's not a different egg. It's the same egg I just used. So I'm going to put it back in and show you that it sinks to the bottom. So there's my egg. It sank to the bottom. I'm going to set it right here. I'll move it over so you can see. I'm not going to play a trick on you. And now I'm going to add some salt. And this is just regular table salt. So here we go. Pour my salt in. I'm going to make sure I add enough. All right. Now I'm going to stir my salt into my water. And look what's happening to the water. It's making the water look foggy. Like you can't see through it. All right. I'm going to stir up my salt. Make sure it's real good and stir it up into my water. Now, let's try and see. Okay, do I have enough salt in there? We're going to take an educated guess. What do you think is going to happen? Do you think Miss Ashley added enough salt to make the egg float? What do you think? Let's try and see. Oh, it sank to the bottom. I don't think there's quite enough salt in there. Let's try adding a little more salt. Okay, here we go. Oh, my salt is almost empty. All right, let me stir up my salt. Make sure it's good and stirred. All right, now let's see. We're going to try adding our egg again. So sometimes when we test out an experiment, what we think's going to happen might not always happen. So let's see. Now, let's try adding our egg. Let's see, what do you think's going to happen? Do you think it's going to sink or float? Oh, it sank. Oh, let's see. We need to add a little more salt. I hope I have enough salt. Let's see. Okay. Here we go. Let me stir up my salt some more. See if this works. Okay. Oh, it's trying to float. It's not quite there. You know what I'm going to do? We're going to... Oh, what's happening? Look at the egg. It's starting to float. And then it went back down to the bottom. Let's see if I can get a little bit more salt from my kitchen. I'll be right back. Okay, let's see. We're going to add some more salt. I'm going to take it from my salt shaker. So here we go. There's a little bit there. And now let's add this salt. All right, let's see what happens here. I'm going to stir it up. Got a big chunk of salt in there. Okay, let's see. It was starting to float the last time. What do you think's going to happen this time? Okay, here we go. What's happening? All right, I'm going to move the camera so you can see. Here we go. What's happening to my egg? Can you see it? It's floating. Pretty cool, huh, boys and girls? There you have our fun experiment about what sinks and what floats. And I had to add quite a bit of water. If you don't have such a big container of water, you wouldn't have to add as much salt. So depending on how much water you use will depend on how much salt you have to use to make your egg float. But you can try this out at home with mom or dad's help. You need a grown-up to help you with this. And whatever you use, you can use objects around your house. You don't have to use the same things I used. You may not have a plastic fish at your house or a feather, but you can try different things out at your house to see if they sink or float. But always ask a grown-up before you test it out, because some things we don't want to put into water because it could be dangerous. So just always make sure you ask a grown-up before you try something out. And remember to use an educated guess. Use those brains to see if you can guess if it's going to sink or if it's going to float. All right, thanks boys and girls for joining me today, and I'll see you next time.